Hello, this is George Lees talking to Gordon Bowden, who's going to make some sensational disclosures. I want you to know that the intel agencies have just shut down my second computer that we were going to use to record this, so I'm using old-fashioned camera technology to record what Gordon Bowden has to say. We've had a very bad day at the office because we're getting right into the heart of the intel surveillance sector, and we've had a variety of videos shut down in mid-production. Gordon's going to talk, I believe, about the AIM, the alternative investment market in London, and the corruption that prevails there. Is that correct, Gordon?
Well, it's a lead into the alternative investment market. It's now called AIM, A-I-M. And it used to be called the alternative investment market. However, there are approximately 1,300 odd companies currently registered on the alternative investment market. And
are you on full volume and right in front of the microphone?
Well, I've got the microphone to my
just
mouth.
That you sound a little bit quiet.
Well, let me just alter my settings. Just bear with
it's tolerable. If you're as loud as you can be, then just go with it.
I can adjust the volume. Just bear with me. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's good. That's loud and clear now.
Okay. The alternative investment market is a subsidiary of the London Stock Exchange, and it was a derivative to allow small startup companies to have the ability to float shares. And the owner, or one of the main people, is a guy called Marcus Stuttard, S-T-U-T-T-A-R-D. And at the moment there are 1,254 listings on the alternative investment market, which was launched in 1995, and it's raised over £24 billion. However, they've helped over 3,000 companies, so that means more than a half of delisted from the AIM. Now, the AIM is not a regulated.
£24 billion does not sound like a sense.
No.
The running costs for the NHS in 1 year used to be 140 billion.
Yes,
they're
right.
now down to 107 since we imposed austerity on the taxpayers.
Yeah, but what you don't understand is that since that 24 billion is the market capital header for each company, however,
for every scam it can.
No. It has raised 24 billion. However, those companies, of which there were 3,000 overall on the AIM, what they do is they have a market capitalization which is like the head, or the total amount that they can raise for that particular company. However, they go on and raise more capital by devaluing their share price by putting more shares into the market. Now, the only people that invest in the alternative investment market are institutional investors and little tiny private investors and very rich people, because they see it as an open opportunity to make hundreds of millions, if not billions, by using virtual companies. And that's what it is. It's a network, a casino, for a syndicate of very wealthy people and the crooks that work for them to steal billions, if not trillions. And these people are linked to members of Parliament, members of the House of Lords, and even top bankers like the Rothschilds, who see this as an unregulated platform for stealing billions. And they do it every day, much to the demise of the financial state of this country.
So is the gist of what you're saying is that they keep sloshing new shareholdings into the existing market, so that there is more and more inflation of how many stocks take control of each tangible company within the system? Is it like the issuance of money and the quantitative easing scandals that we've heard about already?
What they do is that as the directors steal the cash and share assets of their particular launched company, whether it be a fake oil, gas and mining company, what they then do is, in order to keep the company afloat, they then put more shares on the market to raise capital. And they do this for up to 10 years. But nobody, and I say nobody, conducts due diligence, not on just a single company, but multiple companies that these directors are directors of. So they can be directors of 50 to 60 companies, oil, gas and mining companies, that are virtual companies. And you will know by looking at 50 Lothian Road, Festival Square, is that when you run through all the companies that operate out of that address, which is a mail forwarding service, and that means that a big company like Cairn Energy is operating out of a mail forwarding address, not a big skyscraper which has made billions, where all their company directors operate out of a particular building. They operate out of a mail forwarding service.
And we've seen the implications of that, where the mail is forwarded to company secretaries in places like Florida, Cuba, Monterrey in Mexico.
Or even a block of flats.
That's right, or in Geneva into the Rothschild Investment Trust. So we've got that on the website already, yes, about how the money is disseminated abroad in havens, in chunks that are undetectable to regulators anywhere.
Yeah, well, let me give you some of the top AIM companies at the moment is Gulf Keystone Petroleum, and there was a member of the House of Lords on there. I'm not going to go into that, but it had a market cap of over 1,669,000,000. Now there's another company, African Minerals, over $1 billion, 343 million. Cove Energy, over $1 billion, and Rockhopper Exploration, 781 million. That means it's floated shares to the value of 781 million, and that company, I make public statement, is nothing more than a Ponzi scam interlocked with Falkland Oil and Gas, Argos Exploration, and let me see, there's 5 companies. Border and Southern also operated out of the Falklands, and the people have been buying shares as advertised by their individual banks, where they sell shares because they have bought block shares for these worthless Ponzi scams. And
so there is no product for any of those half-dozen companies that you have cited there?
These companies are specifically designed to steal the raised capital and cash burn it with director salaries and launder the money to subsidiary companies, where they purport to purchase acquisitions of undervalued assets, that when you check them, if you had the time, you would find out that those new acquired purchases, that the directors of the parental company are also directors of that acquired company. And this is how they've been stealing billions for 30, 40 years. And
does that go on in it sounds a bit like what I read about what happened at Rangers Football Club when the fans were defrauded by the directors.
Well,
the directors earned £800,000 a year, but what they got as bonus payments were massive share flotations that, they were being issued de novo, and you can see that it's like a hyperinflationary tool to give the directorate a massive bung to desert the supporters and to pass on all of the assets. What David Murray did was to pass them out of Rangers PLC. They published the accounts in parallel for a couple of years together. The figures were exactly the same as the income and the output from the Murray Investment Trust, and all of a sudden they crashed Rangers PLC and sold it to Craig White for £1, and the rest of it was suddenly a major fundraiser for elite investors in Aberdeen Asset Management, which we've talked about at length.
Yes,
because of the directorships there. Tell the listeners some of the stories about the directorships at Aberdeen Asset Management.
Well, I'm not going to go into that tonight, George. What I'm going to tell you is the United States security regulators have claimed that the alternative investment market, the AIM as it's now called, is nothing more than a casino, where 30% of the issuers didn't last more than a year. That means 30% of the companies that are on the AIM delist and deregister after 1 year. A lot of these companies are connected to mass fraud, as was a company called Langbar International. That's Langbar. Langbar. That was a £375 million fraud conducted by the same network of con artists that are still on the AIM. Now, I wanted to...
And it's as if the Yanks are preaching from a pulpit that none of this happens in Wall Street. That must be fraudulent too, to the nth degree.
Of course, because what you have is that these companies that are listed, these fake virtual oil, gas and mining companies, there are thousands of them. Nobody's checked. I think I'm the only one that's ever made the research viable and to be forensic, where these companies can be proven via common directors to be interconnected on the alternative investment market, the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSXV, and the Australian ASX. And so what you have is that these individual companies can be dual listed on multiple stock exchanges, and that just provides them with a legal avenue for moving money across continents, and that's what they're doing.
And you're aware of the, when the transitional government is put in place in places like Iraq or Libya, within a few months, the first priority for that transitional government is to set up a trading centre for stocks and shares in that brutalised country. And that has now happened in Iraq and in Lebanon and in Libya, and they've, everybody has got different tiers of these scams operating within their country, and they also regulate absolutely the issuance of money, cash and currency, either fiat or electronic, in all of those brutalised countries that have been taken over by the same cabal.
Well, what I'm saying is that nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever confronted these people as I have done. And the reason for that is that nobody's ever thought that a fraud of this magnitude could be conducted by a syndicate, an organised crime syndicate, who have seen the opportunity to move onto an unregulated stock exchange, which the AIM is. It's only lightly regulated, because what they do is the AIM, in order to cut the regulations for small startup companies, made the regulations easy to manipulate. Now, organised crime as such, I'm talking mega billion-pound organised crime syndicates, where these people have used the alternative investment market, the AIM, as a vehicle to run wholesale fraud, theft and money laundering. And no one regulates that, in as much as not one regulatory body oversees any company documents other than a financial report which is submitted by a complicit accountant and auditor and lawyer, signed off by a lawyer.
Your slant on the auditor's role is that they are advisors to optimise the criminal take from this?
Yeah, because they're complicit. They are complicit because they are getting a cut for handling. And this is where this country has been used as a vehicle in major organised crime.
So that's KMPG, Deloitte,
Yeah, all the banks.
Price Waterhouse Coopers and one
Exactly.
other. I keep forgetting the fourth one.
PricewaterhouseCooper is one of the companies that are named, and KPMG, that those regulators, auditors and accountants are complicit because they handle the accounts of these people, and you will actually find out that some of them have shares in them.
Well, I was going to ask you if the actual four big auditors are listed themselves, you know, because the London Stock Exchange is actually an investment entity itself, isn't it?
Yes.
You can take shares in the LSE.
Yeah, but if you understand how you make money out of penny stock shares, is that it's called insider trading. And what these people do, which is the major top 20 shareholders in each of these Ponzi scams, oil, gas and mining companies, what they know is how to manipulate the share price, when to buy and when to sell the shares. So as they speak the price up in false information that's fed by RNS releases to the shareholders, what they then do is watch the share price rise, and then they sell their shares. The stock price then drops because there are more people have sold more shares and bought more shares, so the share price has been manipulated on purpose in order for the top 20 shareholders and directors who are given free optional shares to then sell the shares and make a shitload of money.
I think the most famous examples of that in recent times are Warren Buffett's acquisition of over 1/3 of Tesco's, when he got the insider information from the outgoing CEO of Tesco's.
That's right, but because once you know and are given inside information, when to buy and when to sell shares, that's the people that make the money. The losers are the little private investors, the little tiny people who mortgage their houses up to the hilt on the word of a bank sending them a slip or an email to say, listen, these are good companies, put some money on this, you've got plenty in the bank, we know what you've got in your bank account. And so the poor gullible person is brought in like cannon fodder, and these people are treated like sheep.
And another perfect example of that is the Co-op Bank. You know, they've had a series of CEOs now who get 2 million a year to pretend that they don't understand why the bank has collapsed in the last 3 years. Peter Marks appeared on Radio 4 on the Today programme, and he gave the economic lecture for I think it was the year 2011 or 2012, the year after Mervyn King gave the same lecture as the outgoing head of the Bank of England, and it was all talking up the prosperity in the bank, the unprecedented prospects, and within 18 months all of that has gone in what they call the Lloyds Verdi project. They sold that bank into a massive $1 trillion debt pool that was owned by the Lloyds Banking Group. They gave the chief executive's job to the head of the Lloyds Banking Group Remuneration Committee so that they could pay off the quisling members of the cooperative movement and pretend that the whole thing was an accident. And like Rob Ford in Toronto, they've pretended that those CEOs who got 2 million each for maybe 2 months service at the head of that corrupted system to pretend that they were drug addicts, and the BBC supports that wholeheartedly after they've sold the whole concept on Radio 4. None of it is in the Radio 4 transcript. You have to rely on investigative journalists' releases at that time, and I've still got the correspondence from the Co-op Bank that declared that they did not understand what I was articulately telling them, and I've referenced it to all of my website pages on all of those crimes as they occurred at the time. It is ruthless and vicious, and the poor old investors who still remember their mutual cooperative number when their mum set up their account are being robbed blind without the vaguest awareness.
Let me just lead you down a forensic trail. You will know on the latest TV and press releases, a certain amount of MPs are calling for an inquiry into the missing dossiers of a paedophile ring that leads to Parliament, to the top of Parliament. Parliamentary paedophile rings. Now what happened was a sequence of dossiers went missing in the past, which if exposed would have led to the biggest scandal in British public history. Now, one of the people calling for that inquiry is a gentleman called Mr. Zac Goldsmith. He is the MP for Richmond Park and North Kingston. Now, what the people don't understand is when you look deeper beyond the facade of somebody like Zac Goldsmith.
And just to confirm, you've mentioned Cove Energy.
Yes.
Zac Goldsmith is a relative of Britain's richest man, the Duke of Westminster. Is that correct?
Yeah, but he's also the son.
Because the Duke of Westminster.
He's also the son of late billionaire, Sir James Goldsmith, and this is where this cabal of a syndicate of well-heeled, organised crime operators have been allowed to manipulate a market such as on the London Stock Exchange, which is the alternative AIM, and being able to make billions out of virtual oil, gas and mining companies. Now,
well, it's worse than that. They're also involved in the directorship of the British Legion.
That's
you know,
right.
the war profiteering effort. They have a litigation fund of over 7 million that if any investigative journal accuses them of profiteering in any of the wars that they have engineered or profited from, they use that to put down the little guy that's trying to reveal the truth about those bloody world wars and all the conflicts we've had in the last 300 years. It is ruthless.
But what you're looking at, George, you're missing the point here. What he's trying to do is appear to the general public to be the saviour and to expose paedophile rings in the top of government. Now, he's doing this for a reason, and I'll tell you why. Unbeknown to you, but it's been well press recorded, Zac Goldsmith has just ended his 11-year marriage, admitting infidelity with one Alice Rothschild. Now that name should ring a bell, because you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the Rothschilds, but I don't want to create a conspiracy there.
Well, this is not conspiracy.
Okay, keep telling me the facts.
This is fact. Zac Goldsmith, under ID number 915447621, year of birth 1975, is a director of the Rainforest Foundation UK, and it was incorporated on the 29th of the 9th 2010 under company number 07391285. One of the directors is Mark Adrian Campanale, and he, under ID number 911924379, year of birth 1960.
Tell me Campanale's, how do you spell Campanale?
That's Charlie, Alpha, Mike, Papa, Alpha, November, Alpha, Lima, Echo.
Yeah, got that. And his director number?
Is 911924379.
9119.
24.
Yeah.
379.
Thank you.
Now, under his companies that he is the recorded director of and being affiliated to, you check when you run through the financials of those companies. Most of £0. They are junk. However, one struck a chord in my throat, which was a company called Cassano Merge Trading and Investment Limited. That's Cassano, Cassano,
yeah.
Merge, Murge, Trading and Investment Limited. Now, strangely enough, you will find Company Directors Limited and Temple Secretaries, which is out of that massive boiler room of over 500,000 Ponzi scam shell companies
Finchley Road.
run out of 788 790 Finchley Road.
Okay, I'm learning, and I encountered company directors this very morning when I was looking at local border solicitors companies and their interests in care homes that used to be state owned but are now privatised and are being profiteered from leaders of local communities that are unelected officers that are in power for life in our local regions, and they're taking out all of the assets that were public assets before Mrs Thatcher learned to steal from Finchley Road, and that is shameful. Now all of the pensioners across the country are having to pay for private access to things that have been stripped out the council buildings, and the council building have a massive year-on-year debt problem because the Rothschilds have engineered that internationally. Everybody is in a toxic debt pool by design, and nobody understands their role in that except you and me.
Well, one of the people that Zac Goldsmith is affiliated with, so that means he's on the same board of directors with Mark Adrian.
And Zac Goldsmith is a Conservative politician, or is he a socialist?
No, he's
like Baroness Blackstone. Some of it is really amusing.
He's a Conservative, and here's the thing: when you want to divert the attention from one thing, you use your ability to be able to throw a curveball, and this is what Mr. Zac Goldsmith is doing. Because when you look at his mates, Mark Adrian Campanale, you will find he's also affiliated with Fiberson or Fibergium Limited, and that is Instant Companies Limited and Swifting Corporations.
Oh yeah, the usual suspects.
Which is the other massive boiler room in Bristol, at 1 Mitchell Lane. Now, when you look at his mates, one of them is Jonathan Wyndham Malins, and he's a man that has been fined by the Financial Services Authority and fined £250,000 for insider trading, and that's what it's all about. The Financial Services Authority fine individual directors for insider trading, but they do not look at the bigger picture, which is that these directors are directors of multiple companies where they are given optional shares, where they also conduct insider trading. And this is the biggest scandal that is affecting the British economy without anybody looking at it.
And so this doubles up also with the infrastructure contract scandals. I've been talking to a man on the riverbank this afternoon about the building of the Parliament building in Edinburgh and how they proceeded ever so slowly with the trams project in Edinburgh, and how now the third, fourth bridge is underway. You know, a lot of those things are funded. There's a contract agreement that is reneged upon instantly and is renegotiated with local councillors who get trickled down just to ignore the contractual commitment that they were given when they signed that contract to companies like, I forget what the company is that built the trams in Edinburgh, Belfinger something.
Yeah.
But you know, those things are happening. That high-speed rail contract, with the deferral of any productivity until, you know, we've passed on, all of the politicians that are negotiating it will be dead by the time our children pay for it. And by the signs of things, it's highly likely to be crashed like a lot of these virtual product scams are. You know, once the take or the proceeds from that are safely laundered abroad by the methods that you're articulately describing.
Well, look, George, let me show you in one specific instance.
We're 29 minutes in now.
It won't take more than a couple of minutes.
Okay, go for it.
Jonathan Wyndham Malins was with all his multiple companies. He was a director of King-Coal Corporation Limited. It's a delisted company. Now, when you look at the financials of that company, it's got £0, although it's a delisted company, and a net worth of minus 25,806,000, and liabilities of 48,466,000. Now, these people...
So that's just written off by the regulators?
That's just written off by the regulators with no investigation. And yet, this Jonathan Wyndham Malins has still got 4 active, 25 resigned, and 30 with 27 dissolved companies. Where are the regulators?
And they're solvent with decent amounts at the bank?
No, these companies are running on a debt facility. These companies are the companies that have been asset stripped, and I'm talking hundreds of millions of pounds, but nobody has conducted any due diligence on this bunch of Australian con artists. So you talk about I'm Jake the Pig with one extra leg. Yeah, you can talk about him all you want, but there's a lot more Australians that have come out of that have come into this country and are asset stripping hundreds, thousands of companies on the penny stock without any fear of prosecution, because multiple MPs are non-executive directors and members of the House of Lords are directors of these virtual oil, gas and mining companies. So I think we should leave it there, George.
Yeah, that's excellent, Gordon. Thanks ever so much. I'll turn off the recording facility now and I'll get that on air as soon as I can. Under what title would you like?
Well, you could